Jake was still chuckling at one of his own terrible jokes when we climbed out of his car and he reached for my duffel bags. The sun was dipping low, painting the street in that warm golden glow that only comes in late afternoon. I hadn't walked this neighborhood in almost 2 years, and now here I was, home. After 18 long months overseas working in military intelligence under federal orders, I had pictured this moment 1,000 times. No parades, no fanfare, just surprising my wife and kids with a quiet reunion, maybe some tears, definitely a hug that lasted too long. But not even 5 minutes after setting foot on my front lawn, I was face to face with the one person in the entire neighborhood everyone whispered about but avoided, Deborah Winters, the so-called president of the HOA, though no one had elected her. Clipboard warrior, rule enforcer, self-appointed queen of the block. The neighbors called her Karen behind her back, and I was about to find out just how she'd earned the title. The plan was simple. My wife was still out picking up the kids from school. Jake, my brother-in-law, was helping me sneak inside so I could set up a small surprise. Just a modest little welcome home banner on the lawn. Nothing big, nothing flashy. I was still in uniform, straight off the plane, exhausted but running on pure adrenaline. I was halfway up the front walk when a voice cut through the air like a siren. "Excuse me, what do you think you're doing?" Her tone was sharp, shrill, and dripping with authority. Deborah marched across the street like she owned every inch of asphalt under her orthopedic shoes. Clipboard in one hand, pearl necklace swinging, her salt and pepper hair pulled back so tight I could almost feel my own scalp ache. Jake froze, but I kept moving toward the door. "Hi there," I said as evenly as I could. "I'm just coming home to surprise my family." She narrowed her eyes at me. "And you are?" She asked it like I was trespassing. "James Parker. I live here. This is my house." If she was impressed, she didn't show it. Instead, her gaze dropped to the little welcome banner Jake had just planted in the grass. Section 7. Paragraph 3 of the HOA bylaws requires that all yard decorations be submitted for approval at least 14 days in advance. Her voice practically buzzed with authority. Then she eyed my uniform. "And that outfit, what is this, some kind of costume party?" I let out a slow breath. My wife had warned me about Deborah during video calls, told me how she'd turned the HOA into her own little fiefdom, but I hadn't imagined it would start this quickly, or this petty. "Ma'am, I've been deployed. Overseas for 18 months. I just want to surprise my family. The banner will be gone in a few hours." "Rules are rules, Mr. Parker, if that's really who you are," she snapped, folding her arms. "Did you file an extended absence form before abandoning the property? And what about your lawn? We sent 3 violation notices last summer for grass height." Jake finally spoke up. "Deborah, seriously? James has been serving this country. Can't you just let the banner go? It'll be gone by tonight." She wasn't budging. Instead, she pulled out her phone and started snapping pictures, not just of the banner, but of me. "Please don't photograph me without my consent," I said, my voice tight but controlled. "I've been traveling over 30 hours. I'd like to get inside before my family gets home." "I have every right," she shot back. "This is HOA property. For all I know, you're impersonating military personnel, which is a federal offense. Show me your ID. Prove you actually live here." I sighed and reached for my wallet, but before I could even pull it out, her eyes darted to the outline of my sidearm beneath my jacket. She let out a theatrical gasp. "Is that a weapon?" she shrieked. I stayed calm. "Yes, ma'am. I'm a federal agent currently active duty. I'm authorized to carry. Here are my credentials." I held out my federal ID, hoping that would finally end this nonsense. It didn't. "A likely story," she sneered. "Costumes, fake badges, and now a concealed weapon? I'm calling 911. Jake's eyes went wide. "Deborah, come on. This is ridiculous. My sister's been talking about his return for weeks." But she was already clutching her phone, breathless with the thrill of it, reporting a suspicious armed man impersonating Military personnel. Her voice rose higher with every word, shaking not with fear, but with excitement. I stayed calm, pulled out my phone, and started recording. Ma'am, I'm documenting this interaction. You're making false statements to law enforcement, which is a crime. I've identified myself. I've shown you valid credentials. Her cheeks flamed red. Stop recording me. That's a violation of HOA privacy. Section 12, Paragraph 7. Federal law supersedes HOA bylaws, I interrupted evenly, and knowingly filing false emergency reports is a federal offense. For the next 20 minutes, she prowled my lawn like a restless hawk, phone still pressed to her ear as she exaggerated her story to the dispatcher. She claimed I was aggressive, suggested Jake was some kind of accomplice. By the time the police finally arrived, 2 officers approached with caution, hands hovering near their weapons. I lifted my own hands clearly in sight, identified myself, and presented my credentials again. One officer, a fellow veteran, glanced at my badge and immediately eased. Agent Parker, he greeted with a respectful nod. Welcome home, sir. Sorry about the welcome committee. But Deborah wasn't finished. She jabbed her clipboard in the air. This is outrageous. He still broke HOA rules. That banner is unauthorized. The officer stared at her flatly. Ma'am, you called 911 over a welcome home sign. I called about an armed impersonator, she snapped. Which we now know was a false report, the officer replied firmly. That's a criminal offense. Her face drained, then flared crimson again. I was protecting the community. How was I supposed to know he was actually military? Anyone can order a uniform online. The second officer, who'd been jotting notes, looked up. According to Agent Parker's recording, he identified himself before your call. Is that correct? Deborah stumbled over her words. He showed me something, but I wasn't sure it was real. I was just being cautious. I stepped forward calmly. Officers, I don't want to press charges. If Ms. Winters is willing to leave peacefully, I'd prefer to move on. My family's coming home soon. They gave her that chance. She didn't take it gracefully. This isn't over, she spat. Expect a formal violation notice. The HOA board will hear about this. With that, she stormed back across the street, stiff with indignation. I thought that would be the end, an unpleasant story for the books, nothing more. I was wrong. Within the hour, she blasted out a neighborhood-wide email warning residents about unverified individuals claiming military affiliation and encouraging them to report suspicious activity. Clearly directed at me. But then, headlights pulled into the driveway. My wife. My kids. They bolted out of the car, running straight into my arms, and just like that, everything else, the banner, the insults, the threats, faded for a brief, perfect moment until the next morning. Taped to my front door was an official HOA violation notice. Unauthorized signage, failure to file extended absence paperwork, intimidation of HOA personnel. A $500 fine, with $50 added for each day unpaid. Worse yet, a separate motion had already been filed to begin eviction proceedings for persistent and willful violations. That was it. Enough was enough. I spent the next day collecting statements. From neighbors, story after story of Deborah's abuses. A cancer patient fined for leaving her trash cans out too long. A family penalized for putting up a basketball hoop. An elderly man written up for planting flowers, armed with testimony. In my recording, I went straight to the HOA's attorneys. I explained my federal position and laid out the legal exposure Deborah had created: harassment, false reporting, attempted intimidation. They didn't need much convincing. 2 days later, the board issued a formal apology. At an emergency meeting, they voted unanimously to remove Deborah Winters as HOA president. She was fined $2,000 for abuse of authority and for putting the HOA at legal risk. I was there when they told her. Her expression was priceless, a cocktail of shock and fury. For once, the clipboard hung limp at her side. The self-declared queen had been dethroned. Actions have consequences, even for neighborhood tyrants. If this story had you hooked, from the surprise homecoming to the ultimate HOA takedown, hit that like button to show your support. And don't forget to subscribe for more real-life drama, comebacks, and neighborhood justice. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.